All right, Brent, it's our 4th test of 2024, and this is a touring tire test. We just finished up with a max performance summer tire test using our brand new BMW M2. We bought that vehicle specifically for testing performance tires, and now we have a brand new touring tire test vehicle.
And from time to time, we'll get questions from concerned customers asking, hey, is this performance platform applicable to my kind of mainstream touring tires?
Our touring tire test vehicle is a front-wheel drive 2025 Toyota Camry hybrid.
It doesn't get any more mainstream than a Camry.
So for our first touring tire test of 2024, we've assembled a group of 10 all-season tires. And these are the, dependable daily driver type tires that are supposed to get you wherever you need to go year-round.
Right, most of them are Grand Touring all-season tires, so those are your well-rounded touring products. One of them is Three Peak Mountain Snowflake branded, so it's considered an all-weather tire. One is Standard Touring all-season. Standard Touring basically focuses a little more on extending tread life, sometimes at the expense of other performance attributes.
Right, and we're gonna test all 10 products on the road for ride quality, noise comfort, and steering to see what people are gonna live with every day, where these tires are gonna spend, the vast majority of their lives.
Exactly.
Then we'll test wet traction and dynamics, and we'll see how they respond in an emergency situation with our simulated emergency lane change on the track. It's gonna be an in-depth, thorough, comprehensive test. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
This is the Cooper Pro Control. As soon as we got on the coarse surface of the first section of our road was slightly high volume tread noise. There's multiple tones, and you can really hear the tread interacting with the road surface.
Yeah, especially the cross-cut coarse concrete, it really brings out a lot of tones with that.
It's a combination of both a little bit firm and also lacks a little bit of composure. So there was just a lot of up and down motion, right?
Yeah, there is. Unfortunately, most bumps are rather stiff too. Like that, it's a little rough.
Since you're at the helm with the steering wheel, why don't you tell us what do you feel here?
Yeah, taking the off-ramp back there, you can tell things are a little wonky. It's a little loose, the response is unnatural. It's not winning any awards in the steering department, even for a touring tire.
Falken Sincera SN250AS. Going over this really broken, kind of jumpy section of the road ride route, man, I'm impressed with the ride, right? It's supple, as you like to say, and I hate that word, but it's cushioned, it's plush. It's also nicely composed.
It's checking all the right boxes for a touring tire. It's great. The noise is good too.
I know.
Even on this cross-cut concrete, it's doing a great job kind of soaking up that resonance. On the smooth stuff, it was really quiet too.
What do you think about the steering?
Steering's great. It's natural, it's responsive.
It feels kind of just right for a touring tire, right? It's not like performance tire pointy, but it feels right. It's relaxed, it has a nice on-center feel, good sense of straight ahead, so it's not wandering all over the place. And Sincera SN250AS kind of hitting all the marks for a touring tire on the road. So well done, really.
So this is the General Ultimax 365 AW. It is an all-weather tire, so designed to meet industry standard for Three Peak Mountain Snowflake. So how was it on the road back there?
Over the, kind of the broken sections of our road ride route, it's pretty firm, almost as stiff, relative to other touring tires.
Yeah, it's a little taut, a little firm, just a hint of secondary motion, nothing terrible. What about noise?
Over the smooth stuff, the smoother sections of our route, there's a little bit of pitter-patter sound, a little bit of a warble. Would you do the warble for me again?
Nope.
Nobody knows what a warble is unless you make that noise. Make that sound on camera. Yeah, that sound. So definitely not as good as some of the other tires that we've tested here, some of the other tires in this test group. And another trade-off that we often see for those extra biting edges is steering that is lighter and feels a little bit more disconnected from what's going on the road. And I'm feeling a bit of that in this tire.
Did you feel any of that slight instability, as far as when you were turning, when you were cornering?
On the high-speed off-ramp and a bit on the on-ramp too. It doesn't feel as planted or as, solidly, it doesn't have as solid of a sense of forward motion.
All right, here is the General Ultimax RT45, the all-season brother to the all-weather all-season Ultimax 365AW. So this is the RT45. This is the non-3-peak mountain snowflake, non-all-weather version. And so far, it's pretty darn comfortable back there. It was compliant, it was smooth, it was comfortable. A little bit of jiggle kind of after the bumps, but overall really nice.
Right, and in our previous testing, we've found that a lot of times the all-season versions tend to be a little bit nicer on the road. You're right, that's holding true here. It's not as taut. It does a good job of meeting the goals of a touring tire in terms of ride quality. What'd you think about noise, Brent?
It's great. It is quieter than the 365AW. Yeah, it's a little quieter than its all-weather counterpart. And I want to be clear on noise. We have tested better tires out there, but in this test, it is probably one of the best.
It's high up there, for sure. Steering and on-road handling. It doesn't stand out as good or bad. It just kind of is. It's a little light. Definitely doesn't feel like performance focused. It's not sporty or pointy, or doesn't have really strong front end authority. It just
Good. All right. So what do you think? The Goodyear Assurance Comfort Drive.
It's actually doing a really good job.
It is.
The ride quality is maybe not as ultimately comfort focused as some of the tires in this test, but it's a really good blend of composure, of comfort. I guess it leans a little bit more towards the taut or composed side, but really it strikes a nice blend for a touring tire. Noise is in kind of a similar boat, but again, it kind of keeps it all at a low level, and then when you're at any kind of speed, it just sort of blends all the tones that it makes into a nice, easy, broad tone.
Yes, it's okay if it's got a kind of a medium to moderate volume of tones, but if they're all blended together, that just kind of makes them all eventually fade into the background.
As far as steering is concerned, it's good. It gets the job done,
Successfully steering the car.
You know what term we don't use often enough anymore?
Yeah.
Category appropriate. Yeah. The steering on the Goodyear Assurance Comfort Drive is exactly what you would expect if you bought a touring tire. We're on the Kumho Majesty 9 Solus TA91. It's not as refined as the top tires in this test, right?
Right.
From ride, it's a bit taut, and there's also a little bit of residual motion, particularly over big or repetitive impacts.
It's okay for category, but it's certainly not the best in this test for ride. Noise is a little aggressive too, especially on this crosscut concrete. It does kind of have a palpable kind of grind to it.
There's a stretch of road that we say is, pretty representative of Midwestern highways. It's kind of a medium coarse asphalt. It creates a little bit of a two-tone noise on that surface. So if that's the surface that you drive on all the time, maybe a word of warning, I suppose. Then what about the steering? High point though, steering, what do you think?
Totally ridiculous.
Well, I don't know. Here we are on an off-ramp. Yeah. Let's check it out.
The steering is great. It is responsive. There's actually, for a touring tire, it's good. The steering is good. There's actually a little bit of response. There's actually a little bit of build-up. It feels natural. Pretty sure you're jealous you're not driving it right now. Or at least yet I had to talk about steering.
This is the Kumho Solus TA51A. This is a brand new, untested tire. Thus far, what do you think about it on the road, Brent?
They rounded over the aggressive bumps pretty darn well, which is an absolute win for a touring tire.
There is a little bit of continued residual motion, which we find a lot of times that's a trade-off for, a softer ride. What do you think about noise? Actually, we're supposed to shut up. We're not moving. What do you think about noise?
We said it was comfortable over bumps, but unfortunately with some of that comfort also came some tread slap. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two because you hear the slap with the bump and you think, oh, this is kind of rough, when in fact it's noise.
Overall, it's actually quite good. It's pretty high in this test for both ride quality and noise comfort. We're about to hit our favorite exit ramp off of the highway. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us, what do you think about the steering here?
We've already driven this tire, so I'm not extremely excited about this, but it's fine. It's fine. It's steering how you'd expect a Toyota Camry to steer through an off-ramp. It's not bad, it's not great.
It's also no Kumo Solus, no Majesty 9 Solus TA91,
You're right.
which is what I would.
Brother does it better. You're absolutely correct.
So now we're on the Michelin Defender 2, and this tire, we classify it as a standard touring all-season tire, as opposed to all the others are Grand Touring all-season tires. Standard touring all-season tires generally are focused mostly on longevity, on providing the maximum possible mileage.
The Michelin is a little taut. We felt this before. The little undulations in the asphalt, you can kind of feel it, like it's making the car, just toss a little bit more.
What about noise? What do you think about noise?
We've had better, we've had worse. So
Cop out.
it's found a middle ground. It's living in that kind of average space.
And I'm just going to say that I think steering is in the same boat. It does respond pretty quickly, but it doesn't feel like it's an intentional quick to respond. It does it. It gets you where you're going to go, and it kind of has the word that you like to, the phrase that you like to say, mono firm.
It is. It's a little synthetic feeling. It's like, am I playing a video game here? I mean, is this the VR? We're in the Vogue custom built radial, yellow stripe. Fortunately not blue. And so far so good. The ride was not bad, especially over the bigger bumps. It was pretty cushioned.
The counterpoint to that, though, is if you string together some repetitive bumps, there was definitely a little bit of jiggle, a little bit of reverberation, continued motion, whatever you want to call it. If your commute has just the occasional big bump, you probably like it. But if you live in a place that has kind of undulating or repetitive impacts, then, maybe it might not be ideal. What about the noise?
Pretty good. Again, it's nothing really offensive. No aggressive tones, no high levels of volume. Do you think the steering kind of follows suit?
Yes, as much as I hate it that we keep saying this in this test, maybe a little bit light. It's not particularly precise. But again, it does what you want it to do for a tire that, let's be honest, is generally purchased for its cosmetics. It's nice to know that it's a competent, nice touring tire as well.
All right, back out on the Vredestein High Track all season. Going over the bridge back there, she's a little stiff, but man, she's concise.
Again, just a touch of stiffness, but really no residual motion, no uncontrolled movement. So it does a really nice job of keeping the car's body motions in check. I'll say the same thing about noise as well. Sure, there's some tones, there's some interaction of the tire on the surface, whatever the surface happens to be at that time, but it just kind of blends everything into just a nice, broad, even tone. There's nothing that really stands out.
It's one of the quietest on the smooth pavement.
Here in the Midwest, our roads are at best, but maybe in nice places they have nice roads. Who knows?
Y'all got those smooth roads where you're at?
And if you enjoy steering feel, the Vredestein High Track all season might be your touring tire of choice, because this one stands out as being heftier, more, precise. It makes you work for it a little bit. Instead of being kind of light and lifeless, it feels like the steering wheel is actually connected to something that's down there on the road, which, as anybody that has watched any of our other videos knows, I'm a really big fan of steering feel, so that holds a special place in my heart.
All right, TJ, let's talk track testing. A lot of our customers, like we said before, have kind of a disconnect between how they drive on the street and what they see us doing on the track in their touring car on touring tires.
Right, and it's not about what you're doing 99.9% of the time. We're trying to figure out what happens that 1/10 of a percent of time when something bad happens. We push tires to the limit on our track because you don't want to out there on the street. We need to know, you need to know, how a tire is going to react in an emergency situation. Does it have any tricky handling traits or bad habits? Because unfortunately, if you find it out on the road, it's too late at that point. You're along for the ride.
Yeah, so it's a part of the safety equation of the tire. It's a part of the total performance of the tire. And we find those things out. Thanks to our partners at Treadwell Research Park and their expansive facilities, we were able to capture 60 to 0 mile/hour wet braking distances instead of our usual 50 to 0. The Kumho Majesty 9 Solus TA91 delivered test-leading results, stopping the Camry at 135 feet. The Solus TA51A couldn't quite match its Kumho counterpart, but it, along with the Cooper Pro Control, grouped stopping distances that were around another 10 feet further. The Assurance Comfort Drive trailed a few feet longer, leading a group in the 150-foot range consisting of most of the rest of the field. The last of the group, and a pretty large step back, was the General Ultimax 365AW, which needed 170 feet to bring the vehicle to a halt from 60 miles per hour in the wet. In addition to our usual wet skid pad testing, we also leveraged Treadwell Research Park's massive vehicle dynamics area to see how each tire handled the same test in deeper standing water. Goodyear's Assurance Comfort Drive provided the best lateral grip in both tests. The High Track All Season, Pro Control, and Majesty 9 Solus TA91 each delivered a solid performance, with the Vredestein in particular right on the heels of the Goodyear. The Solus TA51A, Ultimax 365AW, Ultimax RT45, and Sincera SN250AS all maintained respectable wet grip, commensurate for the group behind the frontrunners. Rounding out the group was the Defender 2 and the Vogue custom-built radial, which maintained decent traction in the shallow water depth, but seemed to be overwhelmed once on the flooded surface.
Wet track laps gave our team a chance to see how each contender put their measured grip to use in dynamic situations that can simulate emergency maneuvers on wet streets and highways. The Goodyear Assurance Comfort Drive leveraged its superior traction, setting times that were consistently around a half a second quicker than its closest competition, the Vredestein High Track All Season. A healthy group of tires found a comfortable pace between 34 and 35 seconds for respectable and appropriate times for touring all-season tires on our front-wheel drive sedan. Although perhaps foreshadowed by their lower lateral traction metrics, the Defender 2 and custom-built radials times clearly indicated their deficit in wet capabilities, and neither could deliver the grip needed to compete with the others in the test.
So for our dry track testing, in addition to the purely objective metrics, the 60 to 0 mile an hour braking, the lateral traction around the skid pad, we also wanted to determine how each tire puts those things together in an emergency situation, right? So we developed an emergency lane change maneuver that we perform on our track. And what we do is we start out, enter a set of cones at a constant 45 miles an hour. And then, using our imagination, some obstacle appears in front of us. So it's a very abrupt lift off the throttle and a hard right-hand steering input to avoid the first obstacle. Now that you're here, theoretically, you'd be in oncoming traffic. So it's another hard steering input back to the left to get back to your original lane of travel and through the third set of cones that we have on the track.
Right, and along the way, we'll evaluate, did we hit any cones doing the maneuver? We'll also subjectively evaluate, how did the car and the tire feel doing the maneuver? Was it stable and confidence-inspiring, no drama? Or was it a tail-out kind of wild ride just to complete the maneuver? Or did we miss it entirely? So all that subjectively will come together to give us a big picture of how the tire performs the emergency lane change.
Cooper Pro Control, up to 45, and around, and through, and no problem. Easy peasy. Yep. We'll say it requires a pretty big turn of the wheel to get it to, initiate the maneuver.
Input is necessary.
Right, and then it's kind of lethargic to respond back the other way, but even so, got it done, no problem. Falcon Sincera SN250AS. I like it. It feels stable, planted, willing to change directions. I don't want to use the word eager, but yeah,
no drama.
Right.
It just kind of follows along. Yeah. General Ultimax 365AW. Oh, here we go.
And oversteer on the way back.
Got it done, but it was on the edge.
It was a little questionable, but like you said, got the job done.
General Ultimax RT45. And it's still fun.
And not, yeah.
Didn't make it.
That was a fail. Every time we tried on this tire, we have not passed the emergency lane change yet with the RT45. Goodyear Assurance Comfort Drive, and no problem.
You always get the easy ones.
Right? One thing that I like about this tire is even when it feels like it's struggling, if you just stay the course,
it just goes where you want it to. It's like it always has some like reserve traction available to help you complete the maneuver. This is the Kumo Majesty 9 Solus TA91. No problem. Might be the best at the emergency lane change.
Right there with the Goodyear.
Right, it's up there at the top. So good job, Kumo.
All right, here we have the Kumo Solus TA51A. Little sideways and we technically made it.
Yeah.
Technically made
By
it.
the skin of our teeth, we
Yes.
made it.
But we avoided it and we got back into the lane. And that's what we found in testing is it would marginally pass the lane change, but it was a heck of a ride when it did. This is the Michelin Defender 2. We are tail happy. All right, it's dramatic when it does it, but it does get the job done. It really wants to snap sideways on you. It's not unmanageable, but it makes the lane change pretty difficult if you are deliberate in entering at 45.
I think sketchy was the word that we used
Yeah.
to describe it most often. It's just so quick to respond in the steering, but then the tail wants to step out on initial response, on the way back, on the recovery. You're just managing oversteer. Yellow stripe, Vogue, custom built radial. And turn in. Ooh, it's
And that's what we found in testing. It would make it half the time.
right, little smeary. Kind of pushes a little bit, doesn't feel super responsive. Fredestein high track all season. We made it, and seems like we've been consistently making it, but it's not what I would call effortless, right? Like
It's not eager to do the lane change. It will if you force it to, but it pushes back a little bit.
Putting each tire through the 60 to 0 mile an hour braking and lateral traction tests in the dry, the grouping naturally tightened up. The Vogue custom-built radial impressively achieved 0.87 Gs along with the shortest stopping distance with the absence of water. The Cooper Pro Control matched the Vogue in lateral grip, but found itself mid-pack in braking. The Majesty 9 Solus TA91 stopped the vehicle in the second shortest distance, while also pulling lateral traction figures within 1/100th of the liters. The Assurance Comfort Drive was right alongside it, but needed additional distance to stop. The Defender 2, Solus TA51A, Sincera SN250AS, High Track All Season, and Ultimax RT45 all managed solid lateral traction numbers while maintaining competitive braking distances. The Ultimax 365 AW seemed to lag slightly behind in dry braking ability, but was one of the best in lateral grip once steady-state cornering was achieved.
So in this sort of, mid-level touring tire test, a lot of these results were really tightly grouped. Of course, there were exceptions, some good, some bad.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, some tires did well at one thing or another, where some did well at kind of everything across the board. And there were others that kind of struggled at, frankly, everything.
Yeah, that's true. And what's really nice about a test like this is it makes it easy for people to think about what matters to me and then make the right tire choice.
Right.
On the road, the Sincera SN250AS really stood out. It had the highest overall score and the top score for each individual metric. The High Track All Season, Ultimax RT45, Assurance Comfort Drive, and Solus TA51A all delivered satisfying on-road refinement as well. Taking a small step back, the Majesty 9 Solus TA91, custom-built radial, and Defender 2 were very good on the road, but they couldn't put together the complete package in quite the same way as the test leaders. The Ultimax 365 AW found itself just off the main group, and the Pro Control, with its relatively higher volume tread noise, firm ride, and lethargic steering was significantly behind the best in the test for on-road characteristics.
If wet road traction is a high priority, the Assurance Comfort Drive and High Track All Season are at the top of the list, with the Assurance Comfort Drive leading all of our objective traction tests. The large mid-pack group delivered satisfactory wet traction and handling characteristics, and the Defender 2 and custom-built radial rounded out the list, each delivering traction that needs improvement.
In our combined ratings, 3 tires rose to the top. The Assurance Comfort Drive, Sincera SN250AS, and High Track All Season really were the best in the test. The 2 Kumos and the Ultimax 365 AW formed a tight group that was followed closely by the Ultimax RT45, Defender 2, and the custom-built radial, while the Pro Control found itself at the bottom of the list.
Now, we won't have each tire's full picture of performance until we do our ice and snow testing in early 2025, so that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, and something else to look forward to is we have another big touring tire test later in the year. So we're gonna get out the People Mover Camry again and test a big group of premium touring tires. So if there's a tire you're looking at that wasn't in this test, there's another opportunity later, so be on the lookout for that.